Hello and welcome to the business programme. I'm Liz Hay and today I'm joined by my special guest, Chris Fisher, owner of the Blind Woodturner and a master craftsman. I've invited Chris into the studio to tell us his incredible and inspirational story that all began with an illness that surfaced in 2008 and caused Chris to go completely blind within 4 weeks. What happened next was some really dark days for Chris and a battle with anxiety, but culminated in a successful business and a fascinating story that he hopes to inspire others with. Chris is an ambassador for a Yorkshire-based wood-turning supplies company. He is sponsored by Axminster Tools and Machinery, and he's an ambassador for the Speed of Sight charity, who work to provide driving experiences for people with disabilities. Hi Chris, and welcome to the programme.
Hi Liz, thank you for having me.
Can you briefly explain for our viewers how old you were when this life-changing event occurred and what you were told about the illness and how it caused you to lose your sight so quickly?
Well, I was 38 at the time, and I remember waking up one Sunday morning towards the end of October 2008 with really blurred eyesight. So it didn't clear up over the course of the day, so I decided to go to the optometrist the following day, and my eyes were non-responsive, and he managed to have a look at the back of the eyes with his equipment, and he said the back of my eyes were all swollen. So he said, you need to really go to the eye hospital in Manchester straight away, which we did. I was given an emergency referral. At first he thought it could have been early onset of macular degeneration, but the blurriness started going to sight loss pretty much day by day then. And to cut a long story short, after 4 weeks from that original visit to the optometrist, I was completely blind, and they said it was toxoplasmosis, an infection that can be found in animal feces, and it had done irreparable damage to my retinas. So I ended up being completely blind due to toxoplasmosis in 4 weeks.
Really quickly then. And can you talk us through some of your recovery, Chris, and especially the rehabilitation that you went through that then led you to set up in business?
Well, the first year of being blind, there's a lot going on, and the sensory teams get involved, so specially trained care workers and social workers come round to your house, and you taught the basics again, how to make a sandwich, how to make a cup of tea safely. You get training with your long cane, which is the white stick that the blind have. So, and you're offered college courses as well, and I did a cookery course for the blind too. So that first year there was lots going on, and mentally I felt okay. But the periods of anxiety lasted for about 3.5, 4 years, and that culminated in such things as feeling nauseated, panic attacks, hallucinations, muscle spasms, not being able to sleep properly. At the time I had a support worker, and he would take me out some days and I'd have to come home because I felt sick. And other days he'd turn up to take me out, and I felt too ill to leave the house. So that lasted for quite a while, like I say, 3.5, 4 years. And I received counselling with the RNIB, bereavement counselling, and that helped me come to terms with my sight loss really well, actually. And I still remember the counsellor's name, Marius, from the RNIB. And slowly but surely you start getting longer periods of feeling happy and wanting to venture out and stay out for longer periods. So that was a pretty grim time in the story of me being blind. But I decided approximately 4.5, 5 years ago to start wood turning, and that's brought me to this point now.
Great. So how did you learn to sort of begin wood turning then? How did that all begin?
Well, it came about by my love of horror films, and particularly the vampire genre. And I wanted a vampire stake as a piece of decorative horror art, but I didn't just want to whittle a stick with a sharp knife. I wanted something a bit more stylized, something a bit more Hollywood really. And I thought, well, I think this needs to be done on a lathe, a wood turning lathe, but I didn't know anything really about wood turning. Of course, I'd heard the name before, but I hadn't ever experienced it hands-on. So what I did was listen to YouTube for approximately 600 hours. So I was listening to tutorials on YouTube by other wood turners, all of them cited, and they were describing obviously the projects they were doing. So my brain is assimilating as much information as it could regarding this mastercraft and tools and techniques and shaping wood and health and safety and the machinery and equipment needed. So after 5 months of listening to YouTube, about 5 hours every day, I purchased a lathe and taught myself.
I know you're the only self-taught professional wood turner who's running a business and is completely blind.
Well, I think we're very few and far between,
Right.
And I think I could be the only completely blind, self-taught professional wood turner that is sponsored and is able to go around the country demonstrating as I do. Certainly Axminster Tools and Machinery that sponsor me, they've not heard of anyone else doing what I do. I know there are other visually impaired wood turners that have been taught by sighted wood turners, or they may have been wood turners before they lost their sight and they've managed to keep the craft up, but I'm certainly, I think, unique in being self-taught after going completely blind and now being professional and sponsored. So I think I'm the only one in the country, as far as I'm aware.
As far as you are, yeah. Now, it's often said, Chris, that makers and creators who produce their own products, they derive a great satisfaction from that process of actually making something by hand, and the production process itself can be quite therapeutic.
Yeah.
Did you experience any of those benefits, Chris, when you began wood turning, and is it still the case?
Yeah, it definitely is the case, Liz. When you're in your workshop, and you're, in my case, at a wood lathe, trying to produce, whether it's a bowl or a candlestick, you know, you're completely in the zone and nothing else matters. I'm not working from sketches. I'm working a lot of the time just from pictures in my mind, and these pictures are constantly changing as the wood begins to take shape, and I'm beginning to express myself in the only way that I know how, and it is very therapeutic. It's very relaxing. I've generally got the radio on and a cup of tea, so this is all part of a coping mechanism for me. So yeah, it's very therapeutic. I find it very relaxing, and it really is. When I'm in the workshop doing what I do, it's a very, very happy time for me.
Good. And what would you say to anyone who's interested in making something or crafting themselves? Maybe they're thinking about going into a trade. Perhaps they're interested in reviving an old art form from a home office or a workshop come studio, you know, for hobby or with the intention of actually setting up in business. Have you any advice or thoughts for anyone?
Yeah, my advice is really go for it. You're never going to know unless you try. And what I found is that, you know, with self-belief and tenacity, lots of confidence, being really passionate and having lots of fun, anything truly is possible. And, you know, you have to treat it very seriously. If you're going to just, you know, be light-hearted about it all and not be committed, you know, I think you will struggle, and, you know, failure to prepare to fail. You know, so you've got to be serious and dedicated, especially if you want to do it possibly as a new career for yourself. But being creative and expressive and working with your hands is absolutely wonderful. And yeah, I would definitely suggest that you give it a go. If that's something you really want to do and it's something you've always wanted to do, or you want to retrain or go and attend night school and do wood turning, for example, or welding or glass blowing, whatever craft form you have a passion for, definitely go for it. You know, we're not here a long time in the scheme of things, and I think you'd regret it if I didn't give it my 100%, and I think others should, just go for it and really love the process.
Yeah. Now we appear to be having a craft resurgence at the moment, Chris, from textiles to glass blowing, as you mentioned, from millinery to jewellery making, sculpting to wood turning and everything in between, really. How important do you think this resurgence could be for our economy, and would you see it as a viable option for some of our young people or career changes to pursue?
I think it's very important, Liz. You know, I've thought long and hard about this, and you know, it's not that long ago that, you know, the UK manufacturing and engineering ruled the world, and we've got this wealth of homegrown talent, you know, men in sheds, you know, tinkerers, you know, we are super talented as a nation, and I think we need to get back to keeping these old crafts that have been around for, in many cases, millennia, alive. You know, wood turning, blacksmithing, forging, stone masonry. You know, they're still in great demands because we have an abundance of historic buildings as well. So the crafts that I've just mentioned, there's elements of that in, you know, pretty much every stately home or castle or cathedral in the land. So there is a need for artisans and master craftsmen. And as far as the youth of the nation is considered, I think we need to really start while they're young and get them interested. I do know that in America they have trade schools. Okay. There's not something like that in the country, I don't think. Not everybody's academic, but a lot of people that aren't academic are so good with their hands. And if we can sort of like grab hold of their ability and their talents and skills early on and nurture them, I think we're going to have a bright future as far as people that are skilled with their hands. And I definitely think that we need to encourage the young and people later on in life to, you know, get involved with these art forms and keep them alive and get Britain, you know, as a centre for manufacturing excellence.
Puts firmly on the map.
Yeah, again. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. Finally, Chris, you've got a personal motto. Would you like to share that with our viewers and explain what it means to you as well?
Well, I have a couple. I mean, there's the keep on turning, which is a metaphor not just for get to your lathe and get turning, but also don't give up. So I like to say not dead can't quit. That's another one. And it's just all about, you know, everyone goes through tough times in their life. It's not just all about disability. Everyone goes through tough times, trauma, transitional periods. So please don't give up. You know, you can do it. You can get through to the other side. And, you know, don't do it on your own. If you need help, you know, talk to somebody and you will get through it. You know, it can be a long road, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You know, there can be some, you know, quite demanding days, but just never give up. You know, please keep plugging away at it and you will get there. Definitely.
That's a great note to end on, really. Well, thanks, Chris, for joining me. You have our utmost respect and admiration for learning a brand new skill as well during a very difficult time for you a decade ago now, and then turning it into a successful business and having your products sold all over the world.
Thank you very much for having me, Liz. Thank you.
You're very welcome. We wish you every success in the future. Now, that's all we have time for on today's show, but do join me again next time on the Business Programme.